Thank you for joining me and Dr. Aman today on the World Health Mental Day for this webinar with Mantor. And the webinar is going to be on loneliness and what men can do about feeling lonely. I'm going to be hosting the webinar today, so please bear with me. And hopefully we can have a very, very engaging conversation. So first off, I'm Vaibhav. I'm the founder of Mantor, which is a community-based mental well-being platform for men in Asia. We want to really encourage men to come and share uniquely their challenges, the problems they're having, and it could be around being a father, managing breakups, anger, or any of those issues, and really find solutions either through a conversation with peers, but also through finding experts such as Dr. Raman himself, where they can get credible solutions and meet these credible professionals. So anybody who's interested can go to mantor.co and find out more. Just a funny clarification: it's not mentor, it's Mantor, so it's MAN. We're playing with words here. But let me introduce, without any further ado, our speaker today, and we're going to try to keep this very interactive. It's not going to be like a lecture. It's almost like a podcast where we're trying to have like a very interesting sort of conversation. So let me introduce our speaker today, Dr. Aman Bhonsle. He's a highly trained relationship counselor, psychotherapist, and trainer in the field of transactional analysis at the Heart Counselling Centre in Mumbai. Dr. Aman has lived for quite a few years in Singapore, and as well, besides being in India and having working with a lot of clients and helping them, he brings invaluable insights and clarity through his unique storytelling. You can see the picture when he's off video, and he's besides being a psychotherapist, he really knows how to tell a story. He's really very interesting, and he has some really interesting life experiences. He's met some really interesting clients, and I'm sure he can talk a lot more about the different struggles that men face today. So thank you for joining us, Aman. Very, very pleased to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. And whenever people introduce me in this long and almost ostentatious way, I'm like, oh shit! Now I gotta actually say so many things in the little time that we have. So I hope to answer all your queries. I hope to leave you with a few queries as well. So not everything has an answer. Sometimes the question has to germinate, to lead to your own personal realizations, so you can build a story in your mind about how you want to live. So I hope to tickle your curiosity and leave you with something to take back as well, beyond the scope of this webinar / podcast / conversation.
Perfect. No, this is great. I think in general, before I start, I wanted to let the audience know that there are two options here. There is a chat option, right, and there's Q&A. So if something that Dr. Aman speaks about that really resonates with you through the conversation, feel free to write stuff there. But if you want to ask a question, and we will have around 15 minutes at the end for Q&A with him, please put it in the Q&A tab, so that the two are separated, and we can understand things better and facilitate this better, essentially. So yeah, I think before we start, Dr. Aman, the one thing which I found very surprising, I was doing some research before the call, and I found through Men's Health that 1/3 of the men regularly feel lonely, and this number is only on the rise because of COVID, and there are just so many challenges men face to create genuine friendships and connections today, and so it just made me feel that this topic itself is something really, really meaningful in the world we live today. And I have some really interesting conversations, but I'd love to start with understanding your take on what do you think of loneliness when we talk about men's relationship status. So do you think a man's relationship status has anything to do with feeling lonely?
Well, I don't think it's so much a question of a man's relationship status. I think it's about their relationship with themselves, really. I mean, what is your relationship status with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Break it down really simply. Do you enjoy your own company? Do you think of yourself as someone worth spending time with? Because here's the secret: you are constantly going to be spending time with only one person in your life, and that is yourself. So if you are able to enjoy certain pursuits, if you're able to invest in certain activities that bring you pleasure, that means you enjoy your own company. And such people usually may not on a sustained basis feel lonely. Look, we are social animals. I think men, women, children, everyone enjoys that kind of discourse, that kind of interaction. It's kind of like throwing the ball and then getting it back. So it's a two-sided approach to, I think, just living your life, just, being who you are. Uh, so loneliness per se is, I would say, it's an emotional state, but also an existential one, whereby technically, unless you're a twin, you've come into this world alone. And when you die as well, you can't take your nice car, nice wife, nice house, nice job, nice group of friends with you. You die alone as well. And you don't know when you're going to die. And there's no way you can postpone that date apart from the obvious stuff like, keep a healthy diet and try to, take good care of your body. But we're all going to go someday. So, loneliness is our default state, I would say. So, why do we find ourselves wrestling so much with it? That's because of the emotional aspect of it. Because of the fact that a lot of us are conditioned to believe that we are incomplete without the support or without the feedback given to us by someone else. So if I think to myself that, hey Aman, you're a nice guy, I like you, apparently the conditioning may hold me back because I would believe that, oh, I'm not a nice guy till someone else tells me I'm a nice guy, till my parents tell me I'm a nice guy, till my boss tells me I'm a nice guy, till my best friend tells me I'm a nice guy, till my spouse tells me I'm a nice guy. So we are conditioned to believe that our individual opinions of ourselves don't hold water unless, and then that is also dubbed as narcissism. Like if you praise yourself for having done a certain job well, you say, hey, why are you praising yourself? Somebody else should do it. So this is our conditioning. So this is why being alone or being, by yourself is frowned upon. Even the expression in India for getting married is get settled, which is
Right.
to imply as if that you are in a state of, unsettlement.
Right.
If that's a word, it's unsettlement, right? I mean, you're in a lack of a settled state. You're in chaos unless
Right.
someone else comes. Even in movies, they say, "Oh, let him get married, then his wife will handle him, or his wife will take care of him, or ground him." Isn't it? So these are
Absolutely.
cultural assumptions made that you are not fine unless you have someone else babysitting you, looking over you, managing you, sort of handling you, curtailing you in some way, so you don't, go off into the wild with your flute. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
a lot of it is cultural conditioning. A lot of it is, self-indictments, hating of yourself, self-condemnatory thoughts that you have rehearsed over your life. Oh, I'm so full of shit. Oh, I'm so lazy. Oh, I'm no good. Oh, I'm, not measuring up. Oh, I've not made my family proud. Oh, my life is in the shitter. That kind of self-talk is more damaging, I believe, than the default state of loneliness. That's what I
This
feel
is
to start with.
sorry. So this is super interesting, right? Because I almost feel like you are saying that you are almost saying that conditioning, this conversation is almost about conditioning versus what really is true, in the sense that you are saying we are conditioned to feel lonely if we are just alone or if we are by ourselves.
Yes.
Whereas uh, my assumption would have always been that, of course, you need a companion. I mean, every person, the moment they get married or they are in a relationship, they feel settled or they feel much better. And I almost want to, question what you're saying in that, isn't that true? Wouldn't you need companionship to feel less lonely? Or do you think a person could absolutely be not lonely just by being themselves?
Well, companionship is nice, but in my opinion, it's not necessary to the extent that oxygen or food is necessary. For example, a lot of great men had trouble, uh, sort of pinning down, their life's pursuits in the form of, having a happily married life. Look at all the greats. Look at Chaplin. Was he able to be happily married? No, he was constantly having a lot of failed relationships. Look at Kishore Kumar, the famous Indian singer. When he had multiple relationships, look at Steve Jobs. What was his relationship with his daughter? So a lot of great men. Look at Jesus. Was he married? Was the Buddha married? He left his wife on the wedding night and he just disappeared into the forest.
You're talking about you're talking about almost enlightened or really smart
But the
or at
fact
there,
that they
right?
are enlightened was realized a long time after they were gone. When they were alive, they were in fact chastised. Jesus was hated in his own town. Buddha was
Right.
kicked out of his own country. their greatness, like the greatness of Picasso, only was expounded upon after he died. He wasn't the
Right.
great Picasso when he was alive. So who knows? Maybe after you die, or after I die, we'll be great men and we'll be writing books about us. See, the fact is simple. You don't have to be with someone to be happy, and you don't
Okay.
and your happiness is not contingent on that kind of refereeing position that someone in your life assumes. Sure, if you want to share your life, be married, there's nothing wrong with that. There's something beautiful about that too. But what I'm arguing against is that it's not a necessity.
Okay.
It's
Fair enough.
nice. Like, it's not necessary for you to only enjoy food if you're eating pizzas. You could enjoy something else as well. You could enjoy a nice nasi lemak. You could enjoy a nice chicken rice. Anyone who argues saying you've not eaten good food till you've had a good pizza, but you tell that person, no, there are other things as well that can give me pleasure from a
Right.
culinary perspective. Similarly, relationships are definitely a way to gain some kind of pleasure, some kind of companionship, to feel a sense of identity. But your sense of identity is not just contingent on the presence of another human being, because by that definition, anyone and everyone in a relationship must be the happiest person on planet Earth. That should be standard prescription, right? Be married, be happy. But
It's
there's
so interesting what you're saying, because when I think of all the times, or when I look at my friends, or people around, even the guys in our community, actually a lot of them are married or in relationships, or have parents and whatnot, but they still feel lonely. So
Yep.
so seems like it's not so much about companionship as much as, actually, would you say it's a lot about not being able to share still? And it's not so much about companionship, but just the ability to be able to share. Because what I see from the men that we work with also, they almost come and say, oh, I feel lonely in my business, I feel lonely in the relationship. So it's almost like the inability to share makes those men feel lonely. And
Just
I
hold on a
feel that,
second. Someone's at the door. This is most unfortunate. I'm sorry. But you know how it is nowadays. Oh, maybe the bell has stopped ringing. That's all right. They can wait. They can wait.
no worries.
All right. Let's go ahead. It's like a church bell. My house bell is so embarrassing. I was
I
hoping.
can't
no.
hear it.
All right. That's great. All right. So yes. So sorry. Let's get back and we can edit this out later. Let's chop.
Let me repeat it, right? I was essentially saying that, is then loneliness not so much to do with companionship, but the ability to be able to share one's problem, one's feelings, and just being able to put it out there?
Oh
Or do you think
God.
it doesn't
I'm
doesn't
so
really
sorry. This is very embarrassing. My house bell is ringing. Please give me a second and I will be back with you guys.
Please do it, no worries. Guys, if you have any questions, please do put it in the Q&A. And thanks for all the comments. Yeah, it's very interesting what you're saying, AJ, which is, the person who will stay with you constantly, the person who you will stay will constantly be with yourself, and loneliness is defined by the relationship you have with yourself, which is very true. I guess that's what Dr. Aman's also saying, that probably we can learn to be with ourselves is when we probably feel less lonely and we stop being as dependent on someone else.
I'm back. Sorry for
Great.
that.
I was just trying to entertain the audience while you were
Sorry
gone.
for the commercial
I think
break.
did a very good job of it.
Hope you've got your coffees and chais. Yes.
Yeah. So do you think it's about sharing, being able to share with someone, or, I mean, okay, no companionship, no, maybe you even like you don't need parents or whatever, but I feel it's still good, right? Like it's still good to have someone you could share with.
See, no doubt that when you share a certain idea, when it gets reflected back onto you, it comes back with its own, sort of condiments. For example, in a creative team, when you brainstorm and several people's perspectives get added to the pool, the idea takes on a life of its own. So, no doubt we are social animals, no doubt that we are social beings, and we do sometimes, to a great deal, benefit from that kind of perspective. But then the question of loneliness, as I said, is a psychological one. You can be in a big group and also still feel very alone if people are not buying into your perspectives. You may say, oh, no one listens to me, no one respects me, no one
Very
cares
true.
for me. So that is possible. You can be in a marriage and you may feel like your wife is either constantly on her phone or constantly chatting with her friends or her parents or her sister or her family. It's she's only in the house, but she's not in my life. So that is also possible. So as you say, sharing is a function of a relationship based in the tenets of a friendship.
Right.
Because when you're friends, you share stuff. When you're friends, you talk about your day, your life, your fears, your anxieties, your dreams, your aspirations. You share that stuff as friends. One friend to the other. Hey, what do you think? This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. This is how I want to grow. So, a strong friendship underpins all relationships, even relationships with your parents. If you can be friendly with each other, give and expect respect as well. So, sharing is a very important component of that kind of synthesis of the interpersonal dynamics. So, where you guys are sort of entrenched, but not dependent in a way that you all fall apart the moment your ecosystem is no longer there.
Right.
So it's a tricky balance you got to strike. You can't say, "Oh, I don't need people because Dr. Aman says that it's an existential problem, and I'm going to now live alone, die alone, and where's my cave where I'm going to rot, and do some kind of meditation, and then just die away into my old years." That's not required. See, all I'm saying is that as much as you need people, it's not as necessary as oxygen or as necessary as food. It would be nice. It's the same way it would be nice if you drove a Porsche or a Maserati. It would be lovely, isn't it? But does that mean that only a Porsche or a Maserati can get you to your destination? No. You can take a Grab taxi in Singapore, or maybe an Uber. I think Grab taxi was dissolved, I think, when I left Singapore. Sounds a bit dated. So here's the thing.
Uber was dissolved.
Uber was dissolved, all right. So see, the way Uber was dissolved, there are certain aspects of your life that are going to dissolve as well in the ebbs and flows of time. Versions of yourself that are going to change. For example, how you were when you were 25 or when you were 24 versus how you are when you're 34. These are two very different people. There is some continuity. Your accent will stay the same, your skin color will stay the same, little more hair or less hair on your face, but essentially there's a lot of change. So at different points of your life, you may feel lonely or not lonely, depending on what your goals are at that stage of your life, isn't it?
Fair enough. And but then would you say, and this is sort of coming back to why we, loneliness is a part of it. The other part was loneliness in men, right? And so when you say it depends on the goals, it depends on where you are in your life, do you feel men and women react differently to that when it comes to loneliness, irrespective of what's happening?
Well, here's the thing. Cultural conditioning and gender roles play a huge part in how you process your emotions. For example, in India, traditional Indian culture, a guy who cries is a sissy. He's a pussy of some kind. That's what his father or the other men in the house would say. Stop crying, like the girls do. And when a girl is extremely focused and career driven and aggressive and vociferous, the mother will say, listen, keep it low. You're a woman. You're supposed to be subservient to the goals and dreams and journeys of men. So again, this is cultural conditioning. This won't be applicable if you were a German girl or if you were being brought up by an Australian father. But this is a very Indian thing. The women have to be subservient to the goals of the men. It's archaic. It's ridiculous. It's debatable. Definitely, I personally would say. So, but here's the thing: we all are conditioned to fulfill certain terms and conditions which our families and schools set for us.
Right.
What I say to you is, if you're 20 years old, please tear up those terms and conditions and create your own, because those terms and conditions were a guideline based on the thoughts of imperfect human beings who in turn have been affected by the guidelines set by their previous generation. So these are like hand-me-down guidelines of what a man should be like, what a girl should be like. So for men, the hand-me-down guidelines is you be macho, you show strength, you don't experience pain, you're not vulnerable, you're a provider. Even when you're not, given the respect of being a provider, you have to provide. That's what men do. And for women, it's your support staff. You're a nurturer. You manage the kids and the home bills. And, you prepare the meals. These are all templates that were set during a time which was very different from the time we currently live in. Let's not forget, in the olden days, we didn't have the kind of law and order and courts of justice. So it was common for men to go and fight wars and women to sit at home and tend to the village and the children and the livestock. Which is why traditionally men went out and women stayed in, because a woman is vulnerable when she's pregnant, etc. And a man typically goes and joins the armed forces when you had feudal lords, you had, fights between people from various tribes, and then that became fights between different countries. So I keep telling people, try to uncondition yourself from your conditioning. Be who you need to be in the moment, not who your
Right.
family deems you should be.
But don't you think it's easier said than done in that one, irrespective of what terms and conditions we were given, right? And I think things are changing. To be fair, I think at least even in India or Singapore, Australia, I think there's a lot more equality. A lot is happening either way. But I
Certainly,
still
yes,
think
yes, it is
there
changing.
is that recurring feeling that at least I see with the men we work with at Mantor as well. They feel that much more pressure. Even me, like me and my wife both are very self-sustainable, but I almost feel that need to be the protector. I don't need to protect
The
anything.
front runner, so to speak. Yeah,
She's probably 5 times smarter than me, to be very honest. But I have that need because of the terms and conditions you're saying, right? But
hundred
it's just
percent.
so difficult, even when I understand it so well. So when someone who does not come from that background or does not understand that, how do they really uncondition this? Because this is just, it's one thing to understand this intellectually, but it's another thing to sort of uncondition
To
it,
internalize it.
right? Internalize it, right? How do you do that?
Well, here's the thing. Anything that you want to get good at, you got to practice. Whether it's skating, whether it's cooking, whether it's, learning how to sort of hack into your own cultural conditioning. So I remember when I was in my 20s, I used to really look down on people who smoke and drink, thinking as if they're the scum of society. Till I grew up a little more and I met some really obnoxious people who are teetotalers and some really wonderful people who are constantly smoking or love their drinks. And then I realized that those substances have nothing to do with their values. So sometimes real life experience teaches you certain things. And then I realized this was the conditioning of maybe my grandfather's times, because my grandfather frowned upon those who had cigarettes or had booze, because those people were considered, maybe because he fought the British back then and he saw the Britishers being having their whiskeys and scotches. So maybe he was told by his father from the village that, oh no, it's only these evil men who are, taking over our country who drink, therefore you don't want to be like them. So you see, these are all stories. Everything that you experience in your life is essentially a percolation of several stories and narratives. Either these are stories you tell yourself, or these are stories that have been told to you when you were 6 or when you were 12 and you didn't have the ability to question those stories. So what is the story that was told to you? Even you may not remember it, but it is affecting you subliminally and you feel, oh no, I need to be the front runner. And despite your wife being the smart woman that you say she is, you still say, no, I'm the man, I need to be at the front. But here's the thing, I believe roles in today's day and age are highly interchangeable. Whoever has more spare time must cook the meals for the day. Whoever's better at it as well, obviously don't want to die of food poisoning. And whoever, has the job that pays more money, obviously has a bit more veto over where the expenses would be allocated. Of course, you talk about it. So everything is interchangeable. And as I keep saying, is that it's not easy. Who's saying it's easy? It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, There wouldn't be a requirement for life coaches, mind coaches, psychotherapists, spiritual gurus. What
But
are all,
shouldn't it be easy? I mean,
why should it be easy? Why should anything in life be easy? Who makes these rules? Nothing is easy. Growing up isn't easy.
what I mean by easy is I mean to say
So
it
much.
should be natural, right? Why does someone have to go through this trauma, this feeling of feeling lonely or feeling like, oh, I have to do this? I mean,
Well,
sure,
even think about it, buddy. Even childbirth is trauma. That's like saying, why should a child have to go through so much blood and guts and, have the umbilical cord cut and then hang him upside
you'd
down
hope
and
it
give him a
stops at some
slap on
point,
the butt? Say again, sorry?
I'm saying you'd hope it stops at some point.
You'd hope it stops. I mean, you enter the world crying and screaming and covered in blood. I mean, if that's not an existential truth, that life is suffering and the circumvention of suffering by altering the way we look at suffering. See, you can either spend your entire life trying to avoid problems, or you can spend your entire life expecting problems and finding smarter ways to deal with them. I would prefer the latter and recommend the latter. because there is no stage of your life where you will be devoid of problems. When you're young, the problem is you don't understand stuff and you're constantly being told what to do. When you're a teenager, the problem is no one gives you the respect you feel you deserve. When you're in your 20s, the problem is you're not making enough money to support the lifestyle you're used to. When you're in your 30s, you got to pay back all those loans. When you're in your 40s, you got to somehow consolidate your wealth and index yourself based on the wealth of all those other people. And throughout these phases, you do feel alone because you feel like you're the only one going through it. But the fact is, this is a shared trauma, this is a shared burden of every man, of every woman. When you're in your 50s, suddenly health and insurance policies become very important. When you're in your 60s, you start thinking about your legacy. When you're in your 70s, you think about what you've done so far and when you're going to die. Because then it starts feeling very close. You start losing people. People start dying in their 70s. And if you somehow made it till your 80s, you start either become extremely bitter or you become extremely reflective about the way you've lived your life. Right? You become extremely cranky and impatient because you realize, damn it, I'm in my 80s, time is up, what have I done? Or what could I have done? Or what should I have done? Sometimes we feel very alone also in our lives and homes when we are constantly living out the dreams and instructions of other people.
Right.
So loneliness is a very, very broad topic. You don't just have to feel alone because there's no one else in your life or in your vicinity. I haven't met a single human being for 7 months and I'm still alive. Okay? There cannot be a social experiment more extreme than what I've gone through. And this is self-invited as well because I could have gone out several times. I have a lovely car, but coronavirus. Like that video with the woman shouting coronavirus. I don't want to go out and risk myself. What if something happens to me? I don't have any brothers or sisters. My parents need to be taken care of. Right? So I decided not to meet anyone for 7 months, social distancing, and see whether I lose my marbles. And I haven't, because I have books for company, I have webinars for company, I have movies for company, I have friends who I connect with on a daily basis. So I don't think anyone is ever in a place where they have to completely be alone unless you've been thrown in some kind of prison cell, like they used to in Nazi Germany. They threw you in a black sort of box and they kept you there. It's not a dark site of the CIA. So yes, it's all right if you're by yourself. It's not a disaster. And yes, you can reach out. So what I'm saying is, don't choose any one extreme. There has to be a balance. Even in a balance of perspectives is what I recommend. Loneliness bad, companionship good. No. Stop thinking in terms of black and white. You can be extremely unhappy in your companionship and you can be extremely happy while being solo, flying solo, being a lone wolf like Chuck Norris. All right? These are some thoughts. Yeah.
So this is very interesting, right? I have actually two questions because I want those who are attending to have very specific takeaways as well.
Right.
And what you've been saying makes a lot of sense, right? Ultimately, I think people always think in extremes, which is loneliness bad, companionship good.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing being comfortable with your loneliness while having companionship both together could be great, right?
Absolutely. Well said.
The better recipe for success or happiness or whatever you call.
Absolutely.
But I had two specific questions. One, how does one identify that they feel lonely? And then two, what can they specifically do? I know when we were speaking a couple of weeks back as well, and you just shared, you have been lonely for the last 7 months. You've worked with so many clients, I'm sure, who feel lonely. How would you help them identify it? One, two, how would you help them solve it? And I understand this is not enough time to do it right now, but three quick sort of pointers on each of them.
All right, here's the thing. So every night before I sleep, I ask myself the question, what have I done today to become slightly smarter and slightly more interesting to myself? And usually, if I don't have an answer, I'll probably do something so that I feel a little more informed and a little more interesting to myself.
Right.
So that is in my opinion, the way to look at life, the way to look at yourself. Because if you enjoy your own company, and of course you will have low days. There are some days where even I feel extremely vulnerable. I'll call a friend up and say, all right, I feel like crap. And and let's talk about something. And then, after 5-10 minutes, we are back, we have normalized and we have a nice chat and we laugh and we talk about things we like. So the first tip is become interesting to yourself. so that you can also feel smarter and feel more informed about whatever it is that you're interested in. Maybe it's your craft, maybe it's the industry you're in, maybe it's something that you're curious about. Okay. Secondly, be extremely mindful about who you are, as I say, gifting your time to. So
Right.
I use the term time thieves. So there are people in this world who are time thieves, and this is something I tell my clients as well. So if someone is only going to eat into your time to crib and tell you, all kinds of the government sucks, life sucks, God sucks, they're going to just burden you with all their dirt. Then I call such people time thieves because they're not adding to your joy. Neither are they educating you. Neither are you learning something from them, and neither is of a chat with them enjoyable in any way to you. It's like you're holding a ball and they're just puking into it, metaphorically speaking, of course. So here's the thing: be aware of time thieves. That's my second tip for you. Be careful because you see, even while talking to such people, you may feel even more lonely at that moment, saying, "What kind of people do I have in my life? I feel so alone." Even though I'm speaking to another human being, I feel like it's a one-sided monologue, like one of those Al Pacino monologues, Center for Woman, 5 minutes of just shouting, you know. People,
We've all been there.
sometimes the parent can be that kind of person. Mother calls up and say, "Your father has done this again. What a crazy man. I don't know why I married him. You should not get married to someone like your father. I know you love your father." This kind of stuff can also be very burdening. So such people can also be time thieves. Your family, your friends, your boss, your colleagues can be time thieves. So, and those people can exacerbate that feeling of loneliness because you start doubting your own taste in friends, in situations. And that's not good for your self-esteem, is it? You feel like
And
you
I'm
have
guessing
settled.
that that's done more unconsciously than consciously, right? Because obviously,
Yes, so be very,
I
very.
don't think anybody would say, "Oh, my dad or my mom is not nice to talk to or whatnot." But
Well,
I
they
think
can.
unconsciously,
Well, they can. You might have an unpleasant family member who keeps calling you up to crib about all the other family members. Oh, everyone's so horrible. Oh, I'm the only nice one. Time thieves. All right? Because your time is valuable. I keep telling people stop living like you're going to live forever. You'll die one day, and you don't know when that day is going to be. So please, make the most of your time, make the most of your day, so that you can live with yourself and live in peace and know you haven't wasted your innings here. And
right?
where every ball that came your way, you were ready to swing the bat. Cricket metaphor for those who are watching the IPL. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's my second tip.
Mm-hmm.
Third tip is stop being mean to yourself. Because what can happen is if you are constantly, dropping bombs on yourself and constantly condemning and hating on yourself, you can feel extremely burdened by the weight of those opinions. And sometimes those opinions are borrowed from people who have said those things to you. For example, if you grew up and you were condemned. For example, when I was growing up, I had a lot of teachers who told me I talk too much, I'm indisciplined, I don't do my homework, I'm a bit mischievous. They used to always. So then I carried those labels in my head. Oh, I'm this. I'm no good. I'm no good. I'm no good. For so many years, I carried that burden. But then after I grew up a bit, I'm like, no, I'm all right actually. I'm not. I mean, if I'm not no good, then by that definition, someone on this planet, is constantly judging everyone on this planet, and by that definition, no one's good enough. So then,
Right.
why am I being mean to myself? So you can feel very, very alone and lonely when you feel like you can't even, can't even be at peace with yourself. So every time you feel angry with yourself, or you hate yourself, or you blame yourself, or you say, I made a stupid mistake, or I did something wrong, or I had a lapse of judgment, or I had a moment of weakness, say these two simple words to yourself. Shit happens. That's a life. These are two words itself. I mean, to really dumb it down and break it down. Shit happens, and that's life. You know, great men, great women have all had lapses of judgment, have all done some ridiculous and embarrassing things that, in retrospect, they might have felt extremely ashamed of. But I tell everyone, wear your failures as proudly as a badge as you wear your successes. Wear both badges. My failures are here, my successes are here. Because they're both a part of you. They're a part of your evolution, they're part of your journey. And that, in my opinion, is one of the most important tips to not feel lonely. Because you accept yourself, you love yourself, you're okay with the dumb things you've done and said, you're okay with the failures that you've left behind.
So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but I need your help to make it more practical for people in terms of implementing this, right? Because for example, when let's say a student sitting in a cafeteria,
Yeah.
they see 8 people around them, all having fun, a group of friends, and then this guy, is sitting alone, having to have his food. Now, to some people, if they were very happy with themselves, they could just read a book or something. They'd be very comfortable in their skin. But for most people, they won't be. So when you say shit happens, I want to go to the next level and say shit happens. But then how do you handle that emotionally to feel not so bad about yourself still? Because you'll still be mean, because you'll be like, oh shit, I don't have those friends. And that's where I feel people falter, because it's the second level where they go like, what do I do now?
So here's the thing, friends are not gifted to you on your birthdays. Friends have to be earned, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, you don't get a salary just for being a nice guy. You get a salary for fulfilling a certain role, or for acting out a certain part, or for having a certain experience in a certain domain. Similarly, friendships have to be earned. So if you want to go and make friends, ask yourself a very simple question. How many people have you gone and introduced yourself to? At the risk of some people even being sarcastic or cold or disinterested, you're going to have to put yourself out there. When I was working, I used to work in the media industry many, many years ago. I used to always go and give my business card at these trade conferences, and I always had these colleagues who'd say, "Oh, why are you going and talking to those people? You think they're going to give you a job? You think they're going to give you a job?" But for me, it was due diligence. I'm at a trade conference not to hang out with the same people I see near the coffee machine in my office. I'm at a trade conference to meet people from other companies, to get to know them on a first name basis, to get their numbers in case someday we got to call on each other and ask for a favor, or network, or even collaborate on something. So good networking practices are extremely important as well. From a curation perspective, you want to really have a good group of friends, but also a good professional network. So yes, if there is a group of people in your college who's sitting and having a good time, what's stopping you from going and saying, "Hey guys, it's all right if I join the party. Oh, I hope there's another chair." Just go in confidently. Go in confidently, even if you're not feeling confident. See, here's the thing in life. Very often we're going to have to do things despite the fact that we don't feel emotionally ready for it. We don't have all the information. We don't feel confident. We don't feel competent. And we are scared shitless. Very often in life. How many people do you know who have given an exam but have felt extremely happy while walking into the hall, coming out?
I have definitely never.
Never, right? No one. I don't know a single person. You always go into these things feeling like crap. But that's life. You'll go through most of life feeling like crap. So why fight with it when it's a default state? Anxiety is frowned upon. Yes, it's a problem when it crosses a certain limit. But here's the thing, I believe all human beings are in a constant state of worry. We're always trying to worry how to double our income. We are always worrying how to live better life, how to take better care of our families, how to make better friends, how to wear nicer clothes, how to take better holidays, how to protect ourselves from the coronavirus. So if all of us are in a constant state of worry, then it's not about eliminating worry, it's about calibrating it. It's about learning how to manage it better. It's like this, if you live in a country where it's hot all the time, you can't shout at the sun and expect it to dim. You will get air conditions in your house. Or you'll wear something that is weather appropriate, isn't it? So you have to make alterations in the clothes you wear based on the weather. Similarly, you have to make alterations in the expectations that you have from yourself and from society if you want to avoid feeling left out, feeling lonely. And it's the management of your expectations that will change the way you see the world. So even if you're going through a phase where you feel a bit disconnected, you haven't met your friends. Like last week I was feeling a bit, I was feeling a bit annoyed with the situation. I'm like, damn it, I used to socialize so much more. I used to go out, go to restaurants, meet friends. But then I kind of asked myself, what if I didn't have a lot of the things I currently have? Like, what if my fridge was empty? What if my electricity was cut? What if my Wi-Fi went away for like 2 weeks? I said, I do have a lot. I can pick up the phone and call up anyone. It's true I don't have some things which I used to have, but that's not just a problem that I have uniquely and that I'm suffering with. It's a problem shared by several people as well, because this is a global pandemic, not localized to just my building or my floor.
Right.
So a sense of empathy with other people can also help you feel less lonely. And this is a
Interesting.
fact because you realize that you've been given a lot more than maybe someone else, right?
That is super interesting. I never thought empathy with others would allow you to be less lonely, because you generally think of loneliness and you think about yourself, and so the other person doesn't really come into the picture, right? That's great. So you shared three things that you felt would really help people tackle loneliness. But before that, you need to know that you feel lonely, and that's the problem, because most people don't even know that they have a problem, or it's really because of loneliness why they feel shit or they feel bad. So how do you really know when you feel that loneliness is really the sort of problem?
Well, when you feel like there is something missing in your life, or you feel like you're not able to really tolerate the idea that there's no one to sort of look over you, look after you, look into your affairs. And when that feeling sort of gets intensified and you feel extremely forlorn because of it, oh no, it's just me facing the music, just me withering away, turning into dust. Self pity, self condemnation, combined with anxiety, combined with a sense of, listlessness, so to speak, like when you feel like you don't have a goal and you kind of can't orient yourself towards a task or a mission or a passion of some kind, or even your profession, that lack of orientation could also be symptomatic of you feeling extremely lonely. Because, see, here's the thing, we all require perspective from time to time. Maybe your counselor can give you that perspective, maybe your mom or dad could, maybe your best friend could give you that perspective, maybe a mentor could give you that perspective. We all do require it from time to time. I keep telling people that just because mental health professionals help people doesn't mean they don't need help themselves. So we too have our resources and our people who we turn to, despite the fact that we are the ones who are supposed to professionally dispense of that kind of, advice or, wisdom, so to speak. But here's the thing: we're all human beings. We're all vulnerable. We all have, difficult memories that we contend with in our minds of how we grew up and how it wasn't easy. So life isn't easy, as I said. Shit happens, and that's life. And you gotta get with the program. You gotta learn to take control of situations instead of succumbing to them. Because you see, despite all the bad or unfortunate things that happen to you, and it may not be your fault that a lot of these things happen to you. How could it be your fault? You were at the receiving end. But it is certainly your responsibility to look into the problem and find a way to circumvent or grow and go beyond the problem.
Right.
And why is it your responsibility? Because I believe your primary mandate is to survive and to do it happily. So be alive and be happy. If you feel like you don't have any goals that you can relate with, these two are simple to relate with. I need to survive and I need to be happy. So I can happily survive. And anything that is impeding those goals needs to be investigated and hopefully eradicated.
Right. I'll remember happily survive from this. So this is super insightful, Dr. Aman. I think this has been very interesting. I have so many things I want to discuss more.
All
So
right,
probably I'm
sure.
going to write to you separately and have a conversation with you. But in interest of time, I actually want to take some questions first,
Sure.
rather than have you answer my curiosity.
Sure, sure. No
And
problem.
we have some really interesting questions. We have almost 10, 12 questions here.
All right, fire away.
So let's try to answer as much as we can in the next 12, 15 minutes.
Let's do it.
So the one of our attendees asking how to deal with the vulnerability that you feel when opening up to others.
Well, you have to be very, very, very excellent question, by the way. I love this question. Here's the thing, you can't just open up to anyone because a lot of people don't have empathy or patience to listen to your problems. I'll give you an example from my life. I had a really shitty breakup many, many years ago. And it was shitty because I got cheated on and I got dumped at an airport. Like, she didn't come to pick me up at the airport. She was like supposed to be there. And I was like, okay, she's not here. Oh, I have an email. Oh, I've left you. I was like, oh, damn it. And now I'm smiling about it because I find it funny. But I was so full of self-pity. Go and tell everyone my story. Oh, I'm so vulnerable. Oh, I was left, Oh, I loved her, life was so unfair to me. And I realized people are actually getting pretty bored with the story because I'm repeating it again and again and again and again to a sickening degree. So here's the thing, if you want to be vulnerable, make sure you're not being vulnerable to the wrong people. Secondly, make sure you're not repeating the same story again and again, because you know what that's like. You know what that's like? It's like you've had a fresh cut on your arm, you put a band-aid on it, but you keep ripping the band-aid every 10 minutes to see, has it healed? Has it healed? Has it healed? Has it healed? Of course it won't heal. You gotta leave it alone. You gotta leave the wound alone sometimes, because the more you talk about it, the more you regurgitate it, like a cow keeps bringing up the grass, chew on it to
Yeah.
masticate it. Don't be a cow. Don't do that. Because the more you talk about it, the more you repeat it, the more 10 different people will hear the same story about how you, got left behind, or how life has been a crap fest for you. The more that story starts intensifying in your own head and you play the victim game. I remember my mum once told this to me. She said, Aman, every victim story has an expiry date, like a bottle of milk. Milk expires as well, you got to
That
throw it
is so
out.
true.
You got to throw it out at one point, because no one enjoys constantly catering to a victim. So, see, if you do have a wound that you are trying to nurse, do it in front of the right audience, isn't it?
But does it not make it difficult? Isn't it contradictory in itself? I mean, I completely agree with you that you should be, not be vulnerable to everyone. For example, in our community as well, we see that people sometimes become anonymous because they don't want their names out and stuff like that.
That's fair. That's your privacy. That's fine.
That's fair, right? That's
Yeah, that's
privacy
fair.
and stuff like that. But what I find difficult is if you have to think so much about having to be vulnerable, it just gets painful, right? Because then you're always thinking, oh, is this person judging me? How do you get over that then? Because the moment you get into that, oh, people will judge me problem, then, being vulnerable just gets difficult.
Well, here's the thing, people are judging you regardless of what you do. You could be a guy sitting on a chair at a street corner. One guy will judge you for sitting. Say, why are you sitting? You should stand, it's good for your knees. If you sit for too long, you can get a cramp. Someone will judge you for why you're sitting on a chair. Why aren't you sitting on a table? People will judge you for all kinds. Somebody will say, it's my chair. I want that chair from you. Someone will judge you saying, look at you sitting, and while the rest of us have to go and work and earn an honest living. Even if you're a guy sitting on a chair, you will be judged. You're doing nothing, you're not troubling anyone, you're just a guy on a chair at the corner of a street. You will be judged. You will be judged for the simple fact that you're alive and that you take up space and have an opinion and have a skin color and have a race and have a gender and have a language. You'll be judged just for that. So don't worry about whether people are judging you or not, because you will be judged by everyone, even with people with the best intentions. Even a saint will judge you, secretly though, but he'll judge you. So don't fear judgment. But if you want to be vulnerable, you have to, as I'm going to repeat what I said, I know it's a bit repetitive, please be selective. All right? It's like if you have a disease, you want to go to the best doctor, right? You want to go to the doctor who has performed the most successful surgeries to take that infection out, or whatever it is, to cure that infection or take out the tumor. You know what I mean? So, similarly, the way you select the best shoe that fits your foot or the best doctor to take care of that disease, similarly, you have to select the best and most suitable candidate who would really receive your pain without, sort of compounding it and saying, oh, you have pain? Guess what? I have pain too. Listen to my sob story. Some people do that as well, So you tell them something that hurts you. Oh, this made you upset? Let me tell you what pain really feels like. My mother never loved my dad.
I think
You know
everybody's
what I
done it
mean?
at some point.
No, but come on now. I mean, see that means you've spoken to the wrong person, or rather, let's not use the word wrong. Someone who's ill-suited, who doesn't have empathy, who's still. I used to have a friend who did this in college. If I'm having a shitty day. She's like, listen, you know what happened? Even I'm having a shitty day, and then half an hour she's like, I'm like, but I wanted to speak to you, but now it turned it all about yourself. So a lot of people
I
don't
mean,
have
it's difficult to find good listeners, right?
Of course, very hard. That's why people in the mental health profession are specially trained in listening skills, responding skills. Why would they require training if it came naturally to every human being?
True.
Years and years of training, months and months of supervision and practice.
Right.
Why would it be required? If it was a default setting, chances are that the house you grew up in didn't even have good listeners there. Your teachers were not good. Teachers would always say, shut up. Why are you talking? I remember we had one teacher in our school who said, don't be smart in my class. What she wanted to say was, don't be over smart, or don't be cocky, or don't, be cavalier in your attitude when I'm the one who's running the,
True.
running the shots out here, calling the shots out here.
Fair enough.
Complicated, isn't it? See, there are no straight answers, all right? There are no straight answers to anything in life. So, anyone who is coming to this webinar expecting, oh, I'm going to listen to Dr. Aman and I will never be lonely again, well, here's the bad news. You will constantly sort of, sort of float in and out of states of loneliness. The way you float in and out of states of hunger. Sometimes of the day you just have to eat something. Sometimes of the day you're like, oh, it's all right, I'm not hungry right now. So, loneliness is not something you are constantly suffering with or afflicted with. You'll have periods of your life where you feel lonely. You will have moments of your day where you feel lonely. You'll have certain moods, certain that make you feel a little bit lonely. No one understands me. You'll feel that way. But as I said, it's an existential problem. You kind of draft in and out of it.
Right. Fair enough. I think we have some really interesting questions here. So I think the attendee who asked this question has a follow-up. If we have time, we'll get to it again maybe
Yeah,
later.
sure, no problem.
But I think there are a couple of really interesting questions. One, Manish is asking, what is the definition of a successful companionship then?
Well, a successful companionship is one where a lot of respect is given, there's trust. You're sensitive to each other's uniqueness. So, y'all don't necessarily like the same things or I don't have to agree with everything, but there's a lot of respect given to the other person, even if they are completely different from you. I believe respect is more important than love. See, love has a logo, the heart. What is the logo for respect? It's not there, right? People celebrate Valentine's Day. No one celebrates let's respect each other day. People have date night once a month. Do they ever have respect night? No. So respect, in my opinion, underpins all relationships. So a successful relationship is one where you all have been able to navigate, a lot of difficulties in each other's lives together as a couple or as individuals. You all will go through difficult patches. So you're able to navigate it together without it stealing away from the respect you all feel for each other. So you're really sensitive to each other. And there has to be a lot of faith in relationships, So if you're constantly doubting your partner for having cheated on you or that's not really a relationship. That's a sham, isn't it? Then you're just together for the convenience of it, or the sex is good, or the photos you all click are liked by a lot of people on social media, or your families are happy that you all are together because you all of the same community. So ask yourself, what are the reasons you're in the relationship for really? Is it to create an advertisement of how happy you are, or is it to really experience happiness on your own terms and on shared terms that are shared between you and your partner?
Right. It's interesting though. I would have imagined that love is just as important, right? Because otherwise, how do you keep going? I mean,
can I tell you something? Can I tell you something? Something someone told me many, many years ago. Love isn't just an emotion, it's also a decision. All right? It's a decision you make, it's a commitment you make to accepting someone, despite the fact that they may have put on a little bit of weight, maybe she's not gone to the parlor, maybe he's losing hair, maybe he's suddenly lost his job and now doesn't have enough money, and he's had to sell off his car. So you have, despite all the difficulties that life presents you with, love is a decision that we're going to stick with each other. It's kind of a code, so to speak, a code of loyalty and respect. That's how I see it. Someone may say, no, love is about flowers and hearts and the Cupid and songs and rainbows. Well, that's good if that imagery works for you. But for me, really, because I've seen couples in their late 70s as well, and for me, their love is translated into their ability to sort of keep each other healthy. She'll give him his pills. He'll give her, call her physiotherapist to take care because she's got a bad knee. So that's important. So then out there, they're not giving each other flowers every day, but it's the small things, it's the little things. It's the ability to consolidate that friendship. It's that special friendship, really.
Right.
Isn't it?
Fair enough. It is definitely a special friendship. I do often feel that, and I don't want to get into the discussion of love more because we want to talk about loneliness. But
love, can have a separate webinar for that.
I do think special friendship is very important with whoever you fall in love with. There are some really interesting questions, so that's why I'm sort of wanting to make sure we take care of some of them.
Yeah, we'll get all of them. Don't worry.
Bren has a question, which is, and I think it relates to the initial conversation we had, right?
Sure.
Which is, you said, we all, and I loved how you described it. You said there are terms and conditions that we all have. And I have it, I'm guessing you have it, everybody else here has it. But how do you get past that terms and condition, that social conditioning we've all had? And obviously that's why, they come to you or they come to a community like us. But for those who don't at this point, how do you go about it, or do you always need help, or social support or expert support to do it?
See, help is nice. Help is ideal as well, because you do need a little bit of coaching, mentoring, and tutoring in certain areas of your life. And when you have an objective third person sort of in the picture to sort of referee the entire situation and sort of guide it, I think that's quite wonderful. I mean, that can really lead to its own journey. So I've had mentors, I've had people I look up to, I've had people from whom I've learned a lot. Even sometimes it's not a person who you have met, maybe it's a video you saw, it's a book you read, it's a quote someone shared with you on WhatsApp. You can learn from anywhere. If you're like a magnet, like a magnet will just attract anything that falls within its magnetic field if it falls within those rules, isn't it? So be like a magnet, it's just attract, pull knowledge, pull expertise towards yourself so that you can consolidate your worldview without
Right.
having those hand-me-downs or those terms and conditions, so to speak, that burden you with a lot of archaic information, a lot of biased and erroneous information as well, isn't it? So you got to keep it's like refreshing your screen. Sometimes when you're browsing the internet, you're like, oh no, why is this website not loading? Let me just refresh it. So you got to refresh your screen, refresh your mind every now and then. It's like a cleanse that you got to keep doing from time to time. Ask yourself a very simple question. Am I being archaic? Am I being rigid? Am I being biased? Am I being unoriginal? Am I sounding like my granddad, who's no more in this world? Who am I? Who am I really in this moment? Am I me, the individual, or am I me, the borrowed sort of skin of my ancestors?
Right. And so if we were to, let's say, there are what, 50, 55 people on the call right now, if they were all to go tonight and say, you know what, I have gotten too many terms and conditions in my life from my parents and from my social conditioning, or my aunt who came and told me, oh, you are the only son in our family, you have to make our whatever, make us
Make
proud,
us
whatever,
proud. Take the legacy forward.
I at least, the reason why we started Mentor and the reason why I went through, what I did was because I had this aunt and my granddad who'd be like, oh, you're the only son in the family, you have to support your dad, this, that. And I almost feel like if tonight we could all go back and say, okay, or what could we do to say, okay, these are my terms and conditions. This is how I'm going to change it. How would that look like? How would that exercise, so to say, practically look like?
So you can ask yourself what I call the three magic questions. And the first question is, how do I want to contribute to this world and to myself? The second question is, what do I need to learn to be more interesting and to be smarter? I've said this before as well. And the third is, how do I want to grow as an individual? What are the areas of my life in which I need to grow? Do I need to be more patient? Do I need to be a better communicator? Do I need to be a better listener? Do I need to learn to, grow my money better and not just spend it on everything that I like online? Or do I need to learn, better business networking practices? Or do I need better shirts? How do I want to grow? So identify how you need to grow, what you need to learn, and how you wish to contribute. So if you ask yourself these three questions every night, instead of worrying about what your aunt or uncle wanted for you, here's the funny thing. If you even give them exactly what they wanted, they'll change what they want after some time.
Yeah.
Because then they've already gotten this. I gave this example last week. I was doing a talk, and I find it very funny. I used to have this friend. He used to always like biryani, like a nice biryani very much. So whenever we'd go to restaurant, order biryani, after the biryani comes, he'd say, oh man, I need some raita, I need some yogurt to go with it. Yogurt comes. Where's the gravy, man? Let's have some gravy. Gravy comes. Hey, no one's having a soft drink, let's have a soft drink. So it's like every time something comes, he wants something more. Wants something
Right.
more. And after the meal is done, let's go for a movie, man. You know, I've had a nice meal. I could use a nice movie. Like, calm down, man. I mean, and then you realize after 6 hours have passed and he still wants something else. Let's go
I
for
mean, we
that,
always
man.
want more.
Yeah, and so
We
people want more from us as well. So your job, you're not born to give people what they want from you. If they want something, they should go and get it and sort of alter their lives, right?
But I almost feel like when someone goes and writes these questions, right? I remember actually, so let me give you an example, right? So I remember when so I was pursuing my master's, and we had this really crazy professor, and he made us do this exercise where it says who's made the decision in your life. And I was like, of course I've made all the decisions in my life. Like, who else is making my decisions? And when I went through that exercise, I was like, holy shit, I have definitely not made my decisions in my life, and I might think so, but it's really someone else. And then I became much more aware of it.
That's right.
But I almost feel like when you're answering these questions, you might still have things that you want to do for yourself coming from your parents or the society.
Sure. I mean, you're an amalgamation, isn't it, of all that you have learned or seen or sort of been exposed to, really. So there's that part of you as well, but there's the part of you that is original, that is creative as well,
Right.
that is innovative, that can think for itself, that knows what it needs. And that is the part of you that you must learn to pay stricter attention to. Please stop ignoring that so-called inner voice that knows exactly what you need to do. That knows exactly when you've spent more money than you should have, that knows exactly when you've eaten more than you should have, that knows exactly when you are in an abusive relationship or in a very utilitarian friendship where the friend is only your friend because they're getting something out of you. That inner voice always knows, that awareness is always there, but somehow we have found ways to subdue it with, oh, I'm too busy, oh, but this is not what my family wants, oh, but I'm full of shit and I'm never right, or I made so many mistakes. We're always trying to drown out that voice. I'm saying, sometimes it would be interesting if you could just write down all the thoughts, even if you're not able to organize them. Write them down, make a bullet point based list, and sort of understand what your original thoughts are. Like, I remember in the year 2014, I realized I need to travel more. I was living in Singapore. I realized, I'm a cheap air ticket away from a lot of countries, Bali, etc. And because I was seeing other people do it as well, so it was an original idea that why don't I travel? Now suddenly I was single again, and I said, I don't have to keep going back to India to meet my girlfriend who cheated on me. So now I can travel and see the world, and so I started planning my own holidays, and that really changed who I was as a person. Like, it
Really?
gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of perspective, a lot of empathy towards other countries and cultures as well. So not stereotype people from another country. When you actually meet them, you realize they're just like us. They have families, they have annoying aunties, they have elaborate dinners, they have some really strange rituals that no one really knows how these rituals started, but hey, it's a festival, so let's do it anyway. We're all essentially the same. So the more you travel, the more you read, the more you meet people, the more you realize that you're technically never really alone.
Right.
It's you among a million, and everyone is in the same state at some point or the other in their life. So since this is a webinar on loneliness, understand this philosophically, you're never really alone, and philosophically, you're always bloody alone. Both are true. There's a duality to the situation, isn't it?
That was extremely deep.
Well, I do try.
No, this is super insightful. I think
For a guy drinking water out of an Incredible Hulk cup,
I
that
saw
was
that.
that was pretty deep.
I saw that. I didn't want to call that out, but now that you do. So
I do
guys,
love
know
superheroes.
We are over time. So quick announcement. I mean, if anybody wants to leave, feel free to. But we are going to carry the discussion for 5 to 7 minutes more. If
Yeah,
that's
let's wind
okay
it up for whoever's questions have not been answered. I'll
Yeah,
leave
I
that
just want to
you.
cover all the questions. So if that's
cover it.
okay. So whoever can stay, please stay. Please stay. Otherwise, I know some people wrote to me that you guys have some stuff going on. So we totally
No
understand.
problem. You can carry on,
Um,
guys. It's all good.
So this is super helpful. I think the 3 questions that you mentioned, and really writing down the thoughts. I think that's something that's very practical. Something that people can definitely go back today and say, okay, what do I really want to do?
Absolutely.
And I'm sure with the 30, 40 things you might write, or 5, 10 things you write, at least 1 or 2 will be yours. Maybe the other 5, 6 will be from someone else, and that's fine, I guess. Right?
I mean, some people call it a bucket list. make a simple bucket list of cool things or interesting things you want to do and you want to see. So, for
Right.
example, for me, one of my bucket lists was I want to visit all the locations that were relevant to World War II. And I've already visited most of them. I've been to Hiroshima, I've been to Utah Beach, where the Normandy landings took place, you know, and I've been to DMZ as well, where the North and South Korea border is. So I've been to a lot of places. That was not Second World War. That's the Cold War. But I do enjoy studying about the history of mankind, warfare, etc. Because for me, I want to understand psychology also from an evolutionary perspective. That why are
Right.
we constantly drawn towards this understanding of suffering,
Yeah.
while still not ever having figured it out, despite the fact that all the great men before us have also suffered a lot. We still imagine that we will someday be able to live a life where there is no suffering, when actually all of us know that that's not possible. Of course, you'll suffer. That's life. Life is suffering, but as I said, how can we survive happily despite the suffering?
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Before everybody leaves, so guys, what we're going to do is we are also going to be sharing, a replay of this. So for those who are going to leave, know that we're going to send it in a couple of days. Let's come to this very interesting question, actually. I think someone's asking, how can someone be confronted to share and open up? Someone close who needs to talk about things troubling them to help them find out of the issues they are, instead of them having to be the strong figure. So how do you really help someone or comfort someone so that, they can share and open up?
There's a there's a difference between comforting someone and confronting someone. So first, make sure which of the two you want to do. Firstly, you cannot put a gun to someone and say, "Tell me what you're suffering with. I want to help you. God damn it, I will help you if that's the last thing I do." You can't be that way. Come on now, because everyone deserves the right to live the life that they want, even if that life is one of suffering and misery and loss and deprivation. It's still their bloody choice. So you can't come in wearing the bat cape and saying, "Oh, I'm going to save everyone at night and jump from rooftops." That's not fair. I think everyone has the right towards self-determination, isn't it? So you got to respect the fact that they have chosen to suffer, if they have in fact chosen to suffer. But if they have reached out and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm lost and I could use a friend, or I could use some guidance," then at that point you do what you can, or you connect them with someone who is relevant to the solving of their queries, isn't it?
But I think the question is more around, comforting, which is if you have someone in your life, you feel, they are closing themselves, or they really want, they are not coming out, and you really want to comfort them, you want to help them, then what's the best way of doing it with someone who doesn't want to share?
See, firstly, it's important to ascertain, if possible, if practical, why they are holding back that information from you. Maybe they're holding it back from you because they realize that you may get riled up, if they say something to you. Suppose, imagine this situation, okay? Imagine there's a girl who's trying to get her boyfriend to open up, and all his problems are with his girlfriend. He doesn't love her anymore. He doesn't want to have sex with her. He has started liking another girl, and she says, "But I want you to open up. But I want you to open up." And he's not telling her that because he knows that if he tells her, "I'm sick of you. I don't want to be with you, and I like someone else," she's going to completely break down. So we got to understand that sometimes people may clamp up or withhold information because the person who is trying to extract that information from them may get completely washed away once that tsunami of information sort of washes over them. So
Right.
these are very nuanced things. I always believe it's easier to open up to a neutral third party. Okay? I'm not trying to just plug my profession, no. But neutrality is very important for that kind of perspective, without the burden of emotions, without the burden of judgment, without the burden of some kind of "this is our culture, this is the right thing to do." You want neutrality so that you are able to have those light bulb moments, isn't it? So if you're too close to someone and you're trying to get them to open up to you, they very well may not as well, because they may not trust your ability to either help them with the problem, or they don't want to compound the problems that you already have in your life. This person is already stressed. Now by giving, sort of offloading my stresses onto him or her, I don't want to exacerbate his or her problems.
Right.
I want to
Fair enough.
save them from the burden of that kind of pain.
So you're suggesting that opening up to neutral party sometimes is
It's
easier
easier.
and
It's easier.
better.
It's
And I think I just saw a comment right now, someone saying that some people might not even want to open up with a therapist, for example. And I almost feel like at some point the person also needs to want to be helped. You can only do so much for a person.
precisely. Couldn't have said it better. You should want to be helped. You can't force it on people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't force wellness and growth and learning and development and happiness on anyone. If they've chosen suffering, then they've chosen suffering. That's it.
Right. Fair enough. Probably the last. We have a couple of questions actually, so we'll make it fast. One question is, and this is interesting. Does materialism correlate with loneliness or the lack of materialism? Either way.
Interesting question.
Yeah.
So, materialism is something that I would say is a byproduct of you trying to fill a vacuum which exists in your life. So a lot of people who are lonely will you notice they try to hoard objects or they are constantly collecting things.
Or
Uh,
shopping, don't you think?
Shopaholism as well. Yes, why not? Keep buying things that you don't really require to also deal with that sense of loneliness because those objects perhaps connect you with a larger purpose or maybe they hold a certain aspirational value or they have a certain snob value that suddenly makes you feel uplifted in the moment that, oh, I have a nice watch now, or I have a nice car now, or I have a lovely, gadget now, like one of those things like an iWatch or something. So status
Right.
symbols. So I think materialism is a function of you trying to make a statement to yourself and to create some kind of advertising for yourself, to sort of create yourself as a brand in front of other people, which is something everyone is guilty of as well on Instagram and Facebook. Everyone's constantly trying to brand themselves, isn't it?
Right.
So that's materialism. Loneliness is connected in the sense that the materialism could be a conduit to address the loneliness. The materialism could be an escape from the loneliness. So that's how they are connected, I would say. But one
So, so,
can be
so you're
independent
almost
of the
saying,
other as well. One can be independent of the other as well.
okay. So you're saying they can be independent, but some people might resort to shopping or materialism to fill the void, if I
Absolutely.
may
Or
say so.
substance abuse or anything,
Right.
anything in particular, depending on what their personal tastes are and what they've seen while growing up, etc.
Right. Fair enough. This is, I thought this was interesting because I also feel a lot of people who shop a lot at some point are trying to just fill that void because they
Yep.
don't know what else to do and, they want to. This is super
Absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely.
Probably the last question for the day. And the question is, I feel, that the most important problem in life is we do not know what we want. So I think this is going to be very deep. Huh? So once we know that we can start having a meaningful relationship, we do not know what we want. Once we know, then I'm a little lost.
So am
Maybe
I.
Shabir, do you
We are
wanna?
both lost in the jungle
Yeah, I think
with my
Shabir,
Hulk
do you
mug.
wanna retype the question? I think what he's trying to say is how do you know what we want? Because most people don't know what they really want, and some people think having a meaningful relationship is it.
Funnily enough, once you have that so-called meaningful relationship, you'll want something else. See, the human desire for advancement, for upgradation, which some people call greed,
Right.
that never really goes because I see as in the movie Interstellar, there's a very nice dialogue. I can't remember it for the life of me, but you can see it on YouTube. That we used to think about our place in the stars, and now we worry about our place in the dirt. So both are true. We used to we look at the stars and wonder whether we can go and explore newer horizons and places, but at the same time we are worrying about our place in the dirt.
Right.
I don't know why I remember that dialogue. So both are true. There's that sense of wonder towards things we don't understand, but there's also that sense of dread towards the things we do understand. And it's the navigation of this duality that's life, really, which is why I keep saying life is the navigation of suffering, not the avoidance of suffering, really. And if you learn to see it that way, we will be a lot less distressed and frustrated with the results you get because failure is a part of the process, really. It's a sort of
But isn't that depressing almost though? I don't want to feel like life's going to be suffering. I want to at least have that tiny bit of hope.
Well,
that
you can watch Mary Poppins if you, you want to feel less depressed. But here's the thing. I mean, people think a counselor or a psychotherapist is. I mean, I'm not giving you back massages to make you feel better. Sometimes I got to give you a bitter pill to swallow, because if you are
right,
looking at life in an overly idealistic, overly idealistic or caricaturish manner, then someone needs to, you know, bring you down to the ground as well, right? Because
right,
life is unfair, life is opportunistic, life has greedy people and corruption. And, in the book 1984 by George Orwell as well, it is established that, corporations and governments are in cahoots to be in a constant state of war, because anxiety and anger is good for money. It's good for business to keep people scared, to keep people tentative, right? You can also manipulate the stock market based on sentiment. So try to understand these things from a macro level as well, all right? There's not just one factor. Life is multifactorial, multifaceted, multi-layered. Okay, so it's not just, oh, if I do these three things, I will always be happy and avoid
it's not
suffering
really black
forever.
and white,
It's not
right?
black and
It's
white. It's not black
so
and
great.
white. These three mantras will make sure you are always happy till you die. No, happiness is something that has to be conquered on a daily basis. You got to, you know, deal with it on a daily basis. Like on a daily basis, you got to brush your teeth, have a bath, cook your meals. Similarly, on a daily basis, you got to ask yourself the questions: what do I need to do that makes me happy, that helps me survive better, so I can grow, so I can learn, so I can contribute, so I can be a better version of myself? Because the world will be what it is: unfair,
Right.
opportunistic, because evil does exist. Depravity does exist, lies do exist, corruption does exist. Whether you like it or no, it will exist long after you're gone. It has existed long before you were born. And your disapproval of it or your vehement tweet is not going to change jack shit. So, get real. And the first step to getting real is getting organized. And how do you get organized? By managing your expectations. Write the damn things down, what you want from your life, because that's the only thing you can control. You can't control how your father behaved with his brothers, or how your grandmother behaved with your mother, or how the government behaves with the poor people in your country. You can't control those things. You can shout on Twitter about how much you disapprove of it, but you can't control it. So,
Very true. I mean, you can only control yourself, right? At the end
absolutely.
of the day.
So,
I almost feel like this is so well understood intellectually, yet so difficult to internalize slash emotionally deal with, which is
absolutely.
such a conundrum that we almost live in, right?
Well, it is a conundrum, but as I said, you gotta learn to. That's why keep telling people, instead of spending time on WhatsApp, read a book. Instead of watching videos of ducks chasing babies on YouTube, watch a TED Talk. Instead of watching a mindless sitcom where essentially the characters stay unchanged for 10 years, watch a documentary. See, it's about what you feed yourself as well, really, isn't it? So if you feed yourself with new information, and if you keep yourself updated and abreast of new developments, then you don't become stale in your pursuits. You don't become outdated in your beliefs. Beliefs change with every generation, because the zeitgeist is also constantly changing. The access to technology has dramatically changed from the time when I was a kid. We didn't have the internet till I was 12 years old. Okay, so I good old fashioned libraries and books. So I have the ability to wait for information to reach me. I don't want everything instantly. So that's the problem also, as a closing note. Everyone wants instant solutions, like instant coffee. All right? But there's a difference between instant coffee and coffee that is nicely filtered, over several hours, drop by drop, like the Vietnamese do it. So you've got to let some things sit with you. You've got to let it steep. And then you find solutions with some help, with some support.
Well, this was very insightful, Dr. Aman. Thank you so much. I hope all the participants got something out of it. And yeah, thank you so much. If you guys, we're going to be having a masterclass every week going forward. And we'll probably send you more details about the replay of this, so that you guys can take note of everything with Dr. Aman, everything that he shared, and sort of internalize it. And we'll also share you some more details around Mantor and how some of the men can join the community. So thank you so much, guys. It was lovely. Thank you for taking time out on Saturday. And Dr. Aman, thank you so much for your
Wait, for
time.
Saturday? I don't realize what day of the week it is anymore. All days are the same. What
That is
days?
very true.
Thanks for having me here, guys. A real pleasure. If you want to learn more about what I do, just go and follow me on Instagram at Dr. Aman Bhonsle, or just Google me or find me on LinkedIn or something. Would love to
You
connect
guys
with
should.
you.
He's super. His profile is super interesting. You guys should definitely check it out.
Or on TripAdvisor if you want to know where to eat. You can follow me everywhere. I'm very easy to find. All right.
Perfect, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Bye bye.